Hello there, people of the internet. These right here are not like direct representations of what we're going to be talking about. They're just going to serve the purpose of giving the idea of some general things that you might want to look out for this particular topic. So I've talked about on this channel before using whatever it is that you have, your choice, dealer's choice. I don't care what you go with as long as you're able to send lead down range. I would classify that as a fighting rifle if you can do so effectively without getting yourself hurt. So, the concept behind a fighting rifle, I've talked about them before on the channel. The differences between fighting rifles and battle rifles is that your fighting rifle is more or less going to be an intermediate cartridge firing rifle, but that's my own definition. That's not like an actual definition. You absolutely could classify battle rifles as a fighting rifle as well. And just for the sake of this argument, so we can cover as many firearms as possible, we are going to include the battle rifle inside of that fighting rifle concept. So, the idea of a fighting rifle is that you basically have a firearm of your choice, whether or not it's going to be chambered in .223, 7.62 by 39, 5.45, 308, 30-06, your pick of whatever fighting rifle it is that you choose to go out into the battlefield with. You have a rifle that is capable enough to be able to do the things that you need to do on said battlefield, which includes putting down the enemy. If you make hits on target, it has to be powerful enough to do that. So I would definitely cross off the list of anything that's .22 long rifle or a weak caliber like that. And it's got to be able to fire fast enough to be able to suppress the enemy, and you got to be able to hold enough ammunition inside of said rifle to be able to I'm trying to pick my words very wisely here because YouTube does not allow a lot of discussions like this on their platform. They just kind of frown on this sort of talk, so I'm trying to pick my words very carefully. You got to be able to have enough ammunition in your firearm to be able to make accurate shots on target, proper follow-up shots, properly suppress said target. I definitely recommend having some sort of externally fed self-loading rifle versus something that takes like in-block clips, like say the M1 Grand / Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing that, just because of ease of reloading and different capacities that you could be using for that firearm. So, the fighting rifle concept, there's a bunch of different things that you want to look out for, but it's not nearly as significant as a lot of people make it out to be. Now, fighting rifle, a lot of people just kind of steer towards the stereotypical things like the AR or the AK or something like that, and those are definitely, absolutely the best versions of a fighting rifle that you can have. A lot of people will tell me that a bolt action or a lever gun or something like that is just as good because all you need is one shot to be able to take down whoever the hell it is that you're aiming at. Well, if whoever it is you're aiming at, if you miss, or if they have buddies, or if they have body armor, or if they're on drugs or meth or something, and they don't get taken down by that one shot, and they're armed with some sort of self-loading rifle that has an optic on it to make aiming at you much, much easier than you with your iron sights, especially while you're being shot at, suddenly they have the dramatic upper hand. As a matter of fact, somebody in my YouTube comment section, this is something that I'm going to repeat on this channel a couple of times, I'm sure. They talked about how they went out to an airsoft field with some manually operated airsoft rifles, and a child with a full auto airsoft gun kept him and his buddies at bay with their manually operating firearms. It is a significant difference going from a self-loading rifle to a manually operated one. Now, that being said, the right circumstances, the right people, the right ranges, the right situations, that manually operated firearm in whatever caliber it is that you want, 357 lever action, Mosin Nagant in 7.62 by 54 rimmed, whatever it is, if the situation is correct and that rifle can be properly utilized, then suddenly that obscure, obsolete rifle becomes a very effective fighting rifle. As a matter of fact, people love pointing out in my comments section about I think it was like a platoon or a squad or something like that, that was kept down by some dude in the desert with a Lee Enfield rifle chambered in .303. This is modern day when this was happening, so you got one guy with a bolt-action rifle, which absolutely would be considered to be antiquated. Is that the word? Antiquated, that's the word. Absolutely would be considered to be antiquated by today's technology standards, and it's still a very, very effective rifle in those particular situations with that particular setup. Now, there are plenty of examples of people trying to do things like that with those antiquated rifles, where the superior technology absolutely wipes the floor with them. But again, the world we live in, like, there's not a set anything whenever it comes to being on a field of battle, being in any sort of situation where you will be going up against somebody else. You don't get to choose what it is that they have. Many times you don't get to choose what goes on around you either. Even if it's just the case of you being in a city and a couple of dudes pop out of a car and they surprise you, there's no guarantee that you're even going to have anything like this. You might have something like this in your vehicle. You might get lucky. They might be going inside your house or something like that, and you just so happen to have one of these on standby. Or maybe you're out in public and your fighting rifle is not a rifle at all and it turns out to be a handgun. Suddenly you're limited to that platform, but due to training and circumstances such as the distances that you're at, going up against unarmored targets, going up against targets that tend to crowd together because you're in an urban environment, suddenly that handgun becomes quite a deal more effective than it would if you were, say, in the plains of Arizona where somebody's taking pot shots at you from 800 yards. So the location, the situation, the circumstances, a lot of that has to do with the effectiveness of a fighting rifle. You can do things that increase your chances and capabilities with most situations with your fighting arms. Like, for example, the AR platform, fantastic platform, extremely reliable, extremely easy to mount all sorts of stuff. In this particular case, we got a Picatinny rail on top and an M-LOK rail handguard system. I got iron sights in the off chance that my optic goes down, which it might, because that's a dirt cheap optic right there. Optic goes down, then I still have a way to be able to aim it, but if the optic is up and running, then that is a much more effective way at aiming. This is my Coyote gun, so I got myself a dirt cheap little white light on this thing that I use very, very effectively. In the event that you want someone to not pick up your position all that easily, there is a flashlighter on this A2. It works well enough. This particular one also works as a compensator. If you look right there, you can actually see how the flash holes do not go on the bottom of the rifle. I've actually compared this to other AR platforms that I own that have flash holes on the bottom, and this actually does significantly help with muzzle climb. It is quite the effective flash hider, actually, slash compensator. The only problem with this right here is you got to keep your AR clean, otherwise it will start malfunctioning, and that's just because of the gas system and the way that it operates. You got to keep the AR clean. You clean it every 1,000 rounds or so, otherwise you're going to start dealing with malfunctions. Versus something like the AK platform, which you don't really have to worry about that. The AR is better at keeping like mud and debris and whatnot out. We saw in range's mud tests how good this system is at like continuing to run even though it gets extraordinarily dirty. So that's just because the tolerances of the AR platform are absolutely minuscule to the point to where it keeps out a majority of that mud and dirt. Versus something like the AK, which the mud and dirt gets inside of, causes all sorts of issues and malfunctions. However, the mud and dirt and the issues that happen on the battlefield and in whatever sort of situations, although they would have a more negative effect on the AK, time would have a more negative effect on the AR, especially if you have a large round count. So if you are in a situation where you don't necessarily have to worry about dirt and debris and whatnot, and you want yourself a rifle that is going to run for a long period of time, because maybe you're going to be holding out somewhere or doing something in a situation that might require you to be at one particular place for a long time, and maybe you'll run out of cleaning equipment, maybe you don't want to worry about maintaining your rifle nearly as much, the AK is absolutely a decent platform for that. The one thing I don't like about the AK, if we're talking the base model AK like what we have right here, is that there's not a whole lot of customization options. There is an optic mounting like system on the AK, but you need a separate like mounting attachment that goes under the side of the receiver of the AK. It's definitely not ideal. There are like M-lock handguards and whatnot that you could get for the AK. There's modernized AKs out there that you could get your hands on. It's a good cartridge, 7.62x39, kind of on the heavy side for an intermediate cartridge, but plenty powerful and plenty capable for most distances that most things are going to be taking place at, especially because in the situation of an SHTF sort of situation, odds are if you're going in any kind of engagement, it's going to be within shouting distance of one another. The way I see it though, if you're going to go with an updated, modernized AK, it's basically just the AK trying to be the AR. The AR is quite modernized and updated, and it does it extremely well. The big downside of the AK is that it has this big dust cover on the back, so you can't mount anything right there. That's one of the huge issues with the AK versus the AR. It doesn't have that dust cover. It's just the upper receiver that this Picatinny rail mounts on, and it's a really, really stable platform. Now, there's plenty of other options out there if you want to go with larger caliber rounds or different rifles or, whatever it is. As I've said before on this channel, I don't care what it is that you go with, as long as you can effectively send lead downrange and make hits on your target that put that target down and make it stop being a threat. I don't care if you decide to go with 30-06 or 7.62x39 or 5.56 or 308. I don't care if you're running a G3 or an FAL or something like that. Just bear in mind, if me and my buddies are running ARs and 5.56 and you're the one guy running the AK, if you run out of ammo, if you run out of mags, if you can't run that gun anymore, suddenly you're no longer an asset, you're a liability. So guess what? All the resources we have access to, you will no longer have access to because you're no longer useful to us. You're now just something, you're another mouth to feed in that sort of situation. So that's definitely not something that you want to happen. Bear that in mind if you want to be the one AK guy in a group of AR guys. Your effectiveness is going to be limited, especially because the ammunition you're carrying is going to be heavier, the magazines you're carrying are going to be heavier and larger, etc., etc. So this is just my 2 cents on the fighting rifle concept. It does not matter, like the rifle itself doesn't matter nearly as much as the situations of said fight. If you are in a really close-up environment, then like a CQB situation, then like an AR-10 in 308 probably won't be your best option in comparison to like a shorty, say 7-inch AR in 5.56 versus something like, I don't know, the plains of the Midwest where you have these really long shots that might be, taken at you, where that shorty AR is suddenly going to be not all that good. Pay attention to your environment, pay attention to what's going on around you, pay attention to what others are using around you. If you want to be the one tactical bumped my camera. If you want to be the one tactical lever action guy that uses 357 Magnum, great, go for it. But if you're going to do that in the plains of the Midwest and everybody around you is armed with ARs or AKs or AR-10s or something like that, yeah, that might not be a very good idea, especially if it's people that you're not on good terms with. So the fighting rifle concept absolutely is dictated by what's going on around you. That being said, there's certain fighting rifles out there that you can get that will cover a majority of the situations that most people are going to come across. Both of these guns should be effective out to 4, 5, perhaps even 600 yards if you have the skills and effectiveness to do that. And I don't foresee much happening, especially with where I'm at in the state of Florida, that are going to be taking place at distances beyond that. So just my 2 cents on this subject. I don't really have anything else to add for this video, so I'm going to go ahead and do the outro. Thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I will see you guys on the next episode. I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.